Jennifer?
We're live?
I think we are. Go ahead and get started, Julie.
Okay. There we go. Now we're official. I'll call the meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Livermore Amador Valley Transit Authority, and our meeting date is January 24th. And I'll start by this meeting will proceed via teleconference in accordance with Government Code Section 54953 in order to protect the health and safety of staff, officials, and the general public. Council members will not be physically in attendance, but will be available by video conference. I think that's all I need to read of that. So calling the meeting to order, I'll ask for a roll call vote. Roll call.
Director Hernandez.
Present.
Vice Chair Kick.
Here.
Chair Testa.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great, thank you. All right, then we'll go to item 3, which is meeting open to the public. Do we have any public attendees that would like to speak?
We do not have any attendees in the meeting currently, and I didn't receive anything via email.
Okay, well then I will close the public meeting. I'll move on to number 4, and that's approval of the minutes. The agenda says December 27th meeting, but the minutes are October 17, 2022. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll move approval.
I will go ahead and second, but I do have a question. What was October 17th you were speaking of?
Well, on our agenda, it in error says that we are approving December 27th minutes, but we are approving October 17 minutes. If you go to the minutes,
Okay.
it does say October 17th, and those are the minutes for October 17th.
Okay, got it.
Okay. All right. So we have a first and we have a motion and a second, and we do a roll call on this. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I just put on the record that there's no attendees still in the meeting, so we didn't get any public comment. Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Vice Chair Kick.
Yes.
Chair Testa.
Aye. All right.
Passes.
Motion passes on the minutes. So we'll move on to item 5, Treasurer's Report for December 2022.
Good afternoon. So presented before you is the Treasurer's Report for December 2022. As you can see, we had quite a bit in and out. We purchased quite a few buses. So we have a much larger payments made line item than usual, but our deposits made are close to that because the funds from the FTA that paid for 80% come in within 72 hours, which is really nice. And our other accounts are also very healthy. So we have a very healthy cash flow. We are at the 6th month in the fiscal year. So our goal is to be under 50%, which we are. We're at 35.06%. However, as of the end of December, we still had not received the first 6 months of paratransit billing. So that number is not 100% accurate. However, even with those, we would still be under the 50% mark. Revenues, on the other hand, are just over 50%. So as you can see, we have a very healthy cash flow. Any questions?
I have a question. How come we haven't received the paratransit outstanding bills?
So we contract with County Connection, who then subcontracts with TransDev, and they've been having an issue with their contract with TransDev. So we have gotten the bills, we just hadn't received them by the end of December. We got July, August, September, October, and I think November last week. But we have been on top of them. You know, when are these bills coming in? When are these bills coming in? They were able to give me an estimated number last month because I had to do our DBE report for the FTA and I had to have those numbers. But it was estimated and hadn't been vetted, made sure it was, completely correct. So we couldn't pay off of that. So they finally got their contract signed. They were having a contract issue that had absolutely nothing to do with us or our part of the service. However, it held them up, and I don't understand why they couldn't have at least done our billing, but that's their accounting department, and I don't want to tell them how to do their jobs.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that answer or explanation. And any other questions? Then, do we have any members of the public to speak on this? Doesn't seem like we do.
No, we don't.
Okay. All right, then I'll close public comment and ask for a motion to recommend.
I will go ahead and move to recommend this to the full board.
I'll second.
Well, we have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call vote?
Yes, Director Hernandez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Kick,
Yes.
Chair Testa,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Then we can move on to item, here we go. So moving on to item 6, legislative program, and we have a staff report, right?
Yes, that one is mine. Good afternoon, Chair Testa. I'll introduce myself first. I'm Jennifer Yeamans. I work a lot with this committee, and I work on the agency's grants and procurements especially, but also upstream of that, I also work on the agency's legislative program and helping coordinate the agency's advocacy efforts. So this item is a kind of once a year exercise that staff undertakes with this committee to develop the agency's annual legislative program. The item before the committee today requests that the committee approve the resolution 06-2023 and refer it to the board for approval. So this resolution does a couple of things. It directs staff on our advocacy strategies that support LAVTA's mission. And that especially means monitoring state and federal bills. Your local cities might also develop their, your own legislative programs similarly. For bills to support, monitor, oppose, or seek amendments to. And then it also delegates authority to the executive director to consult with the chair for items that come up either in between meetings or that aren't otherwise covered by the scope of our program. So Christy's time coming on board as our new executive director was really timely, so we could collaborate and work on the legislative program together, bringing in some of her new ideas to the agency, which has been terrific. I think before I dive into it, I mean, there's a lot of information in the staff report, which I'm sure you've read very carefully and digested very thoroughly, just about all that's going on in Washington, D.C. and Sacramento around public transportation. Really big picture, I think, is that for LAVTA, our story remains fairly similar, even as the settings change in D.C. and Sacramento with a new Congress and a new legislature. I think the focus of our thinking and our efforts for this year and going forward in the foreseeable future involves, stabilizing the agency's revenue sources, particularly for both operating, our daily operating and maintenance needs for our service, as well as, our capital funding needs for some of our big priority projects. And these really center around the coming transition of our fleet from the current diesel-based fleet to a all hydrogen, zero emission electric fleet going forward, a hydrogen fuel cell electric bus fleet going forward, as well as the new facilities we're going to need to support that transition. So in the staff report, the attachment 2 kind of outlines the different strategies that can support these efforts as bills or conversations happen in Washington, D.C. or in Sacramento. Some of these discussions I've outlined in the staff report. There is a lot going on, and I'd be happy to answer specific questions that you may have about how this may or may not affect LAVTA, but really attachment 2 shows where we've made changes to last year's legislative program, because that's really going to be our guiding document for how we approach new legislative proposals as they come down the pike. So, and then attachment 3 just has a calendar of the state legislative calendar for this year. So, bills will be getting introduced here pretty soon. And there's a couple we know are already percolating in the background that we're going to be keeping our eyes on. So I think I'll stop there at the very big picture level and just kind of ask if there's questions about this item in general, or what our overall approach is, or if there's specific questions about the strategies involved.
Okay, great. Thank you for that report. So do we have any questions?
Well, first of all, I want to say welcome back, Jennifer.
Thank
We've missed
you.
you. We've missed you. And thank you for all the great information. And I see that there's a lot of red marking. So I know we were in Sacramento, or we were not in Sacramento. We were in Washington, D.C.
You
And
might know more than I do at this point.
I know. So there's just a lot of good stuff happening with regard to transportation. And I also feel that there's also more awareness of safety measures that need to take place overall with regards, a lot of pedestrians and bike riders being killed while they're either crossing the street or they are riding their bike. And I know that Secretary of Transportation, Buttigieg is looking at that very seriously. And that was one of the topics that we talked in, with regards to while we were in DC. So I know there's money coming down the pipeline. I feel that we're kind of on target. So I guess my question would be what are your thoughts with like the overall kind of looking forward and moving forward?
Overall, I think that there's good news, which is we've gotten a lot done in very recent years that's now ready to be implemented and like move ahead with. So, Congress reauthorized the bipartisan infrastructure law, and actually for the first time in like a long time made a full year appropriation of the full funding authorized for the coming federal fiscal year. So we know there's going to be, a good sized grant programs coming up for our capital project needs. On the challenges side, it seems like with because there's been a focus on transportation, like you mentioned, now it seems like that's an issue that people generally now think like, oh, I guess that's taken care of, when actually there's still a lot of unmet needs and issues. For example, if you're aware of the governor's budget that he introduced a couple of weeks ago, this time last year, there was a lot of spending proposed out of the discretionary general fund for transportation to address, but there was a huge budget surplus. Well, now there's a budget deficit. And also it seems the governor feels that the federal government has stepped in with the bipartisan infrastructure law to fund a lot of transportation needs. So are we now out in the cold? We don't know. So now, but it seems like overall the idea is, well, the governor wants to see the legislature handle this one way or another. So it's kind of follow the bouncing ball. So we'll have to track all those discussions very closely. There's the public facing discussions, and then there's the not public facing discussions, and we just need to understand who's in what rooms discussing what about what revenue sources, either existing and new.
Okay. And Councilmember Kick, do you have any questions you'd like to ask at this time?
No, just welcome back and glad to see you.
Okay, well, I have a couple then. You on page 3 of 4, it talks about the budget, a lot of what you were just saying, and there are 3 bullet points where there's one where there's an increase in funding, and 2 that seem like pretty significant decrease in funding. Being not as familiar as I would like to be at this point, what is the current concern with that? And what you just said, I just came back from Cal City's conference where it was shocking to hear what some of the clawback was in the budget. And so what kind of a concern does this leave us with?
So that's a very good question, because you're right, these do appear to be diverging trends. What it boils down to is these fund sources have very different sources of revenue, which is very common in transportation funding. So the one, and I think, again, at the big picture, there is not, these are based on preliminary revenue estimates from the state controller's office. And it seems like the governor's effort with his first budget wasn't really to be a numbers game, but to be a messaging, a messaging document. But that being said, something like a 19% decrease in low carbon transit operations program funds, that is funded from a very specified revenue source, which is auctions of carbon credits that are really distinct from other parts of the economy. And I think that this coming year is coming off of what was an abnormally high year the previous year, coming off of a really weird year coming out of the pandemic. So that line item isn't necessarily concerning in and of itself. However, it's not as much as we would like to have to support our agency's zero emission bus transition needs. So it's just something to be aware of for planning at this stage. And there's always a discussion going on in Sacramento about what to do with these cap and trade funds. The other ones are based more on general sales taxes or sales taxes on gasoline or diesel fuel specifically. And so they just kind of fluctuate their own ways, but not in a huge way at this point. And we'll get updated numbers in May.
All right. Thank you for that explanation. Okay, then do we have any participant attendee that might want to comment? I'm thinking not.
We still don't have any. That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you then. Then we need a vote on a recommendation to move this to the board of directors. So can I get a motion?
I'll move that we recommend, I will move the
Okay.
recommendation to move this to the full board.
Thank you,
And
Brittany.
I will second.
Great. We have our motion and our second, and we need a roll call vote.
Sure. Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Vice Chair Kick.
Aye.
Chair Testa.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Fantastic. We're just moving right along. Okay. Then item 7, I understand we have a presentation there as well, right?
Sorry, not so much a presentation. I'll just go over it real quick. What we have coming up. This is just what's anticipated to come up. Things change, but in February, we will have our usual minutes, treasurer's report, and hopefully information on the next year's LC top allocation. And then March should just be the minutes in the treasurer's report, although the funding resolutions can come in March, they're usually in April. April will be minutes, treasurer's report, and the budget. And then May will be minutes and treasurer's report, and their funding resolutions tend to pop up around there as well. We just don't always know about them in advance. And then in June, we'll have the minutes, the treasurer's report, and the legal contract.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you. And we don't need, this is not an action item. So thank you for that, Tamara. And so we'll move on to item 8, matters initiated. Are there any matters from the committee members?
I have none.
Okay.
No matters, but I did get a text message from someone on one of the new buses. They were very excited about it. So just passing along that people like the new buses.
Great. Wonderful. I've got to check those out. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you for that. Then we will then move on to item 9, which is next meeting date is scheduled February 28, 2023. And if there are no further matters, I think I get to adjourn the meeting, correct? All right, so meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Tamara and Jennifer, for your help on this. Okay.
Not a problem.